All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Pitch Us. We have got a great company that we're excited to hear a little bit more about. My name is Jeff Erickson. I'm normally joined by my co-host, Tim Cooley, who is actually not able to join us tonight, but Tim is the author of the Pitch Deck book and also the executive director of the Park City Angels. So in Tim's place, we have a celebrity guest with us today in Landon Ainge. Landon, I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Great. I'm Landon Ainge. I'm the managing director of Assure Syndicates. I basically have invested in a little over 60 deals in the last 2.5 years, and I'm helping consolidate other investors that I think are a fit, or introducing the founders to institutional VCs that I think would lead the deal, as well as run a local angel group called Tribe Angels. So those are kind of the hats that I wear typically as a syndicate lead, helping organize and identify potential lead investors, as well as running a local regional group for Utah called Tribe Angels.
Awesome. And I love sending folks over to Landon. He rejects half of them that I send over, but he is a great, very active investor in the community, and appreciate him joining us tonight. My name is Jeff Erickson. Like I said, I'm with a company called Forecaster that does financial modeling software to help early stage startups. Prior to that, I was with Carta, which is cap table management software. Also an active angel investor. I've done about 30 deals, so about half of what Landon's done in the last few years. But yeah, excited to have Davis and Curtis join us here from Walkbye. And we're going to turn things over to you and let you pitch us.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff and Landon. Appreciate being with you guys today. By just a simple way of introduction again, as he said, my name is Davis Allen, and with me I have one of our team members and board members, Curtis Anderson, also here to give some thoughts and feedback on what we're trying to build here at Walkbye. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and get going here. Okay, and that should be sharing, correct? Perfect. Okay, so my co-founder isn't here today, but my co-founder Brad and I have built Walkbye, actually launching here very, very soon. So to get started, the opportunity, right? So single people every day see others at the grocery store, at the gym, at work, in random places throughout their daily activities, and they see someone across the way that catches their eye, just the initial spark. Now, most of the time with that initial spark, they don't do anything about it. Though they wish they could know their name or go up and talk to them, individuals typically don't go up and do that due to a variety of reasons. They don't know if they're single, they fear being rejected in person, whatever the case is, they fear that they can't do that, and that opportunity truly isn't able to be capitalized on. So now they're left to kind of the more poor alternatives of trying to find that person that they saw on dating apps such as Tinder or Hinge or Bumble, whatever the case is. And unfortunately, that involves too much swiping, not enough matching, and messaging that typically doesn't lead anywhere. And so what we are developing is Walkbye. So Walkbye allows you to connect with those people without having to swipe, match, or message with them. Now, if you're familiar with the typical dating apps function on that specific model. And that's been a model that's been around for 20 plus years, which is swiping, matching, and messaging. And nothing has really come into market to differentiate itself. And so that's why Walkbye, we feel, will help to differentiate itself in an otherwise crowded space by being able to connect individuals through social media networks that they have profiles on, rather than having to swipe and match on these individuals. So this is very simple. So how it works, individuals will go in, create an account, kind of what you would see on a typical dating app, with some information about themselves, some traits, some characteristics, some activities they enjoy doing, a couple pictures about themselves. But as you can see to the right, the biggest difference that we have here is being able to find others in real time. So in this slide, we see that there is a map view that you brought up to. Within this map view, there's a radius. There's a circle of area that it encompasses. Within this radius, you can have an understanding of who is within this radius without seeing their specific locations due to privacy. And so if I was at the gym and I saw someone I would like to connect with or know who their name is and be able to see if they were single, I could pull up the app. And if they have a profile here on Walkbye on that list view, I could go to their account and learn more about who they are. As you can see here, the biggest thing that takes it away from a typical dating app is that we allow individuals to put in their own social media platforms. So this can be a Facebook, a Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, whatever that user would like to be found on, they can put it on there. From there, the opportunities to connect with that person is endless, really. When you're able to go to an Instagram, after I found someone, go to their Instagram, I see mutual friends with that individual. So I could reach out to so-and-so to help set us up, or I could shoot a DM to that individual. Or now that I know they're single, maybe I just go up and talk to them in person. So without Walkbye, I wouldn't have those opportunities because I wouldn't know anything about them if they're single, whatever the case is. So Walkbye helps to bridge that opportunity that wouldn't otherwise exist by allowing people to connect through their own social media platforms and be able to connect in a way that it has a better lead than what is currently on the market. Now with the market, how is this received? Within all of our validation, we've interviewed and talked to over 700 individuals, majority of which were female. We focused on speaking with females. 61% were females, 39% were males. Of those participants, 76% said that they would use an app like this because it provides something new to connect with people. Now, with that, we have a go-to-market strategy on how we can best roll this out. Because this involves a concentrated area with a saturated amount of people, being able to go to a place, pull up the app, and be able to see a mass amounts of people that I would be potentially interested in. This takes the efforts of getting into concentrated areas and really working in the app. So in our go-to-market strategy, we've analyzed 5 different cities within Utah that we'd like to focus on. Those cities being within all the way north and all the way south, all centered around major universities. So with this, a big marketing strategy that has been used within big dating apps such as Tinder and Bumble and Hinge is the focus on colleges and sororities, fraternities, just those big college groups, putting on large events and parties and allowing people to attend that party by downloading the app. So providing an opportunity for people to be social and just allowing for the admittance to be the app download. Now with this and with obviously the needs of marketing for content creation, ad spend, working with a lot of different influencers on Instagram or TikTok and being able to put forth event marketing, we've put forth a marketing budget for the year one of $500,000 to about $700,000 needed to acquire about 300,000 users. Currently, their customer acquisition cost is just a little over $3 per user based upon the ad spend and influencer spend. That would obviously be reduced due to the guerrilla marketing that we put into effect by going on to college campuses as well. But with that money, we believe that we can get that many users onto the app. Dating apps within their first year, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge were all able to acquire about 1 million users within their first year, along with that strategy and the money that they put in other places. With our first year, we believe that we can hit 300,000 here within Utah and within other places through the efforts that we've created within event marketing and ad spend. Now with that financial modeling, very quickly, we go from a freemium version to a premium version as many other dating apps. Freemium version will include all necessary app functions for users. And then a premium plus version would keep all those base features and then add new desired features that individuals would like to have to make their Walkbye experience that much more valuable to them. Now, with that simple revenue model, if we had 300,000 users at an adoption rate of 5% at a base subscription model of $8.99 per month, that would bring a monthly recurring revenue of about $135,000 per month obviously, as that continues to 500,000 users to 1 million users, and in keeping that 5%, that number drastically increases as well. Dating app valuations are massive nowadays. A lot has happened within the last even 6 months with valuations. So valuations have dropped a little bit due to the economic climate, but these valuations have seen even 2x what they currently are. And so we see a lot of value within the ability to break into an otherwise crowded space by providing something new and being able to take part of that market share. With Curtis Anderson, he can talk a little bit about this too. He was involved in the general counsel, did a lot of the M&A work within the Match Group, involved in a lot of different purchasing of dating apps. As you can see, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid were bought at different amounts due to downloads that they had. That is obviously a focus that we have is getting downloads to then transpire into higher valuations. And we feel that Curtis Anderson can be a great help and lead into allowing us to break into that space and get more downloads to bring in higher valuations. Now, and just in closing, simply to talk about our Walkbye management team, myself and my co-founder Brad Newhouse are the sole founders of Walkbye. And then following, we have Curtis Anderson, the former senior vice president and general counsel of the Match Group, as well as a current BYU law professor. Corbin Church also is an advisory board member. He was a founding partner at Falconer Capital, founder of Michi Bags, has multiple exits himself. He's the head of the BYU entrepreneurship program at BYU. And then Graham McMullen, kind of a chairman with us. We work with Focus Tech, a dev shop out of Salt Lake City, where he also has a 30 plus years of experience, CEO experience, 6 tech exits himself. And that's the team that we are developing. We're looking to expand that team, bringing in women to be able to help diversify and give greater insights to our team as well as we push forward our product. But that is Walkbye and what we're trying to do. And so thank you for letting us pitch.
All right, Davis, great job. Fantastic. I'm going to have Landon start off by maybe explaining some of the things that he liked about your presentation and your pitch deck.
Yeah, I really liked, one, it was visually very easy to consume. I was really impressed with the way it looks and the way that you presented the information. Honestly, that's usually the thing that people get wrong first and foremost. Secondly, other things that I liked is the breakdown of what your go-to-market strategy is. So often, so many people talk about the pie in the sky mission, but you did a really good job of executing or demonstrating your plan of execution of how to get to what you're going to accomplish in the next year, as well as what that meant economically and what kind of the unit economics meant, how you actually make money. Those are the 3 areas that kind of first stood out to me of where I saw differentiation, as well as slightly addressing on the aspects of where other dating apps kind of lacked. I saw a clear description there that helped me understand where you're different. I was left a little bit wanting more on some of those aspects, but we'll go into that a little later, of what I was like, oh, I want to know why you did this. And that might be what you would hope that an investor is asking, which is, I want to know more of how you got to this decision and why you built it this way. So those are really good aspects of both visually appealing, very clear of what you're trying to accomplish, who your team members are and why you have expertise. I would have leaned a little more towards your and your co-founders' expertise, more so for your advisors, but I understand because you're actually, comparatively a younger entrepreneur, that is very common that you would do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Landon. Oh, great feedback. And just to build on some of that, I thought the deck itself was very well put together, looked professional. A lot of the ones we get in here have not been through the, having somebody talented go through and make it look good. So great job on that. I liked how you have a visual, a visual mock-up or whatever of the mapping and everything on the phone. So you can kind of visualize how this is going to work and all of that. I also like that, you showed the market validation. I thought the market validation slides were done well. And then your team slide, I thought you built a solid team around you. I thought it was good that you brought out that one of the deficiencies was, you don't have a woman in there that would actually be a good co-founder or somebody to have on your team to bring that perspective, especially where you've got 67% or of the input coming back were from women.
Yep.
And it sounds like that's kind of an area where you wanted to focus as well, as that's probably a good portion of the consumers. Okay, so I think that leads to some good questions. I know Landon had some questions and maybe some feedback that we could provide in that regard as well. So Landon, do you want to kind of kick things off?
I think I was left wanting your unique market insight that you had come to, if that makes sense. I kind of asked for, you believe that the social apps with their historical model of swiping didn't work, right? But I was left wanting like some sort of clear insight to say, people want to engage digitally first with people around them, and then they want to engage in person, or they want to, I wanted to understand why you were utilizing the other social media platforms. I never understood why that was the case. Was it because it's hard to get their information? Is it because it provides you got some aspects of mutual friends you talked about, but I wanted to understand from your consumer's perspective why it is that would win them over and not actually hurt you long term, of like, well, they found them on another site and then they left your site. And so those are the things I wanted to hear about, which you're building a platform in a completely different way. And I felt like I didn't understand completely why the users would be retained and why it would work for you. I did understand why the other apps weren't working for other people, but I wasn't sure if I got that clear market insight. And sometimes it's as simple as just putting in one clear sentence in front of as a slide. Do you feel like yours is the geographic? Do you mind talking about that for 2 seconds? I know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think to better explain that more, that the problem is many people are on dating apps. Many single individuals are using dating apps, and dating apps have been successful. I don't want to say that they haven't been successful. Obviously, you look at these big dating apps and they have been successful. However, the average individual, as I've said before, have just found that to be a frustrating, pessimistic system where they're really not actually being able to connect with people through dating apps. And so they are wanting something different. And when as a single individuals in their daily activities, they see someone, they want to connect with someone, but they don't, and they can't because they don't want to approach them in person. And so Walkbye takes in that geographical location. So say I on my profile was able to set up a radius of 200 yards. And if on my dating app profile, I had put within the data that I'm looking to find single women between the ages of 22 to 28, whatever the case is, if I was in that area, such as the gym, I would then be able to see any Walkbye user that was in that type of data span of women between the ages of 22 to 28, and they would pull up within a list view, and I'd be able to go to their profile, and as I'm in person, I'm looking and I see that person in person, and I can look onto the app and connect and compare the two and realize that that's the same person that I'm looking at. Now that's good, but it's not great yet. And so what we found on many other dating apps is that people are putting in like their Instagram handles of Facebook onto their other dating apps and said, please talk to me on Instagram. I'm not on here much. So people are already putting this forth that they want to connect a different way rather than through the frustrations of matching and swiping. And so connecting them with the social media that they've already created, where you can learn a lot about someone through their social media, we've decided that is probably one of the best ways to connect with people. As also when we did validation, a lot of people will DM or connect mutual friends with each other to set people up through their own social media accounts and have found that to be a lot more successful than trying to go about the way of connecting through some sort of dating app. So if I'm able to go to someone's Instagram account that has been put onto their profile that I wouldn't have otherwise had access to through other ways, I could go to that and decide a better way to connect with them. More and more people are meeting online than ever before, and that will only increase. And so it's becoming more the norm to meet online first, kind of like what you were saying, and then in real, the flesh in person after, because you can learn so much about someone online. Does that answer that question of why the need for social media? And it kind of, we already have the user behavior created on social media and where we're going in our daily activities. So connecting those two and allowing them to connect in that way will reduce the need to use dating apps, even though you can still do it, but also increase the success of being able to go out with someone or meet someone.
I think that's totally fair. I'm going to throw out something that I thought you were going to say after hearing what you told me was your unique thesis. Okay. I thought when you said people want to meet people in their geography and people they could interact with, I thought that you were using the geolocation feature, that as they're going throughout their day, that basically the swiping feature they would see at the end of the day would interact with the people that they cross paths with through some sort of geofencing structure. And that's what I would have thought would have been the solution. And I'm totally fair, but I do understand that when we change user behavior, we have to educate users. So there's a lot of education. So you're now changing someone's behavior to say, I see that person, I look on here, and I'm looking and I change. And I just saw that historically speaking for investors, my concern, like that was what the feature I thought you were going to say was. And my concern with you using social and actually disintermediating yourself is that you would lower the extra redemption of those that would be willing to pay the paid subscription or paid feature because they're directly connecting via social platforms. So those are just my concerns that kind of perk up when I'm thinking, oh, what would be my concerns of wanting and thinking through this deal.
Well, and I think to your point too, you make a good point. I think there's also a caveat to that, where if I do cross paths with someone and then we have the opportunity to swipe and match, we're still back to that system where let's say if I don't match with them, well, shucks, dang it. Like I didn't have the opportunity to match with them. So that opportunity in essence would be gone, where a user, if they were able to connect through social media and had a mutual friend be able to set them up, the odds of that happening because you have this mutual friend helping you, I guess a more of a warm lead and not just a cold interaction would increase the chances of you actually being successful and be able to meet that person. But yes, I understand where you're coming from as well. And so I guess that's our thought process of why it'd be so important to connect them without having to swipe and match and message with them, because it still takes away that barrier of entry, I guess you could say, to be able to actually meet that person.
Cool. Landon, any other feedback or suggestions there?
The only thing I thought that I was wondering as well, just some of the aspects of risks and liabilities with proximity and stalking and other natures that come up with this nature where you're giving people, locational data. I know it's anonymized for the individual user, but you're still being able to find all of their personal. So I was just curious on that aspect.
Yeah. So one, obviously people have the ability to opt in it for themselves. It's their choice to be able to put themselves on that and be able to do that. For other reasons, we know that privacy is the number one aspect of people's concerns. And so with that, we've developed a few things. I think it's really important to point out that in that map view, you're never able to see anyone's location, right? It's only a list view of saying these are the people within this general location. You're never able to see someone's location. So hopefully that helps to calm people's understandings. We've also put in other features called a dead zone. So dead zones are areas for individuals where they can set as many dead zones as they want, where if you're at your home or at work or other places where you don't want your profile to be seen in someone else's list view, you can create an area where if someone ever goes into that area, you will never be able to be seen on someone's list view. Again, keeping the safety of whether it's your home residence or work or other places you would like to keep private. Those would be areas that you would like to include within a dead zone. There's more and more features that we're thinking about every day to improve the privacy of individuals and be able to help not promote, kind of the unfortunate stalker opportunities for people to get on and to find people. But when it comes to social media, virtually you can find anyone's social media by typing in anyone's name. And you don't necessarily need to be in a geolocation to do that. If you knew someone's name, you could easily find a social media platform. By us doing this, we're just making that more simple. And that's, I guess, I understand that where you're coming from with that too, Landon.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things I had written down that, I'm glad you're able to address that. There are some security thoughts on there and the whole stalking thing. So definitely be prepared to answer those things. I think that will come up. So a couple of things I had. First, I think Landon referred to this as well, but kind of in establishing the problem, maybe dive into that a little bit deeper in terms of how you're establishing the problem that exists today, maybe going a level deeper there. I thought you did a great job on the solution that came up. And so maybe spending just a little bit extra time on the problem and why it's such a big problem, and how big it is, defining why people don't want to swipe or why that's not working today.
And talking to one of those 700 people that you've talked to and kind of sharing their experience, I find those stories and individual stories get to that point in that problem set very familiar. If you can go to 1, 2, 3 individuals, and these people are all seeing this.
Yeah.
This is what they wanted. There's nothing out there. This is what this person expressed. There's nothing out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you've got all this market data that you've collected. Maybe pull out a few of those and validate that this is a problem and this is why people want this solution. So that was one thing. You mentioned, so there's a couple of things. There wasn't really a market slide, like here's our TAM and our SAM and our.
Yeah.
And normally I'd say, okay, you were kind of missing that. In all honesty, I didn't feel like that was that big of a deal. And I would say in most cases, that's not the case, because I want to understand that this is a big enough market to justify a venture type investment. But I think it came across that, yes, this is a big enough market once you get outside of the test, beachhead that you're going after in Utah.
And I do have those slides. I guess in this sense, I didn't decide to use them. Okay. But yes, we do have those slides available for investors. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You addressed it through proxy with the other transactions and the other players in the space, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I did the same thing. So for other listeners, I would say don't necessarily skip that slide. The market's important, but I think you actually got away with it because you have some big players that you're went out against. And same thing with the competition slide. There wasn't necessarily a this is us, this is them. It was kind of set up in the beginning that this is how we're different, and it's a different model. So it's kind of unique in that way that those two slides are normally kind of must-haves. I think you got away with not necessarily having those and being okay.
Yeah.
The one slide that there's another slide that I think you also falls in that same category. Normally you'll have like a financial projections heading out, where are we going to be? I know you said 5% of the 300,000 users that you're anticipating would end up being 135,000 a month. And so it gives me a good idea of, okay, this is a decent opportunity here in the short term. I might want to kind of see what that looks like over the next 3 to 5 years as well. And you probably have that as slide as well, but just give me an idea of what your ambitions are, because one of the other slides you had was the acquisition slide.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes depending on the audience, if you're talking to a venture capital firm, if they see an acquisition slide and it's got $50 million on there, they're probably not super excited about that. You didn't necessarily say this is our plan to get acquired, and so, it was good data. But just be cognizant of that. A venture capital firm is going to want to see this as, we're taking this to a, $500 million opportunity instead of a $50 million short-term, acquisition. Angel investors might be a little bit different that way, where maybe that is a great win. So just be cognizant of that. The other thing I wanted to mention was you were missing an ask slide. And so there was no ask. And so it was kind of this great presentation, and here you are. And I think you could have wrapped it up real nice with this is what we need. This is what it's going to be used for. You did refer back to, through in the presentation that you need $500,000 to $700,000 worth of marketing to do that. But I'm wondering, is there any product development in there? Is your ask really 500 to 700,000? Are you asking for $1 million? I have no idea what you're asking for. And so that was something that you normally want to end with that and say, this is what we're looking for. This is what it's going to achieve. And here's where it's going to take us, so that as an investor, I'm coming in going, okay, I give up this money and this is what I'm going to see by this time. Here's my milestones that I can measure it against. So that was missing. And I think you need to address that.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, I didn't talk about that as much as I should. I have that slide, probably needed to show that, because that need of getting to that 300,000 was about, again, with our customers acquisition cost is about that. But what we're asking right now is actually less than what is that need to get to that 300,000 for getting started and getting a runway going for us. So yeah, that was.
Okay. Yeah. So again, that's something we'd need to know of what is the immediate ask, what's it going to be used for, where does it get you, when are you planning on raising again, if in order to get to that 300,000 mark.
And
so
I'll be honest, I've seen that slide change based upon who you're presenting to, just because of the need, right? Like, if you're approaching a group of family offices that are smaller, if you're approaching a large VC that likes to lead $2 to $3 million rounds, I have seen those slides change depending on who you're talking to. So knowing that you're pitching us in an informal setting, I'm giving you credibility and grace to say oh yeah, you don't know who you're presenting to, so you don't know what the right ask is for that group. Generally speaking, though, your job is to present, this is the path we're going down. Would you like to join this path that we're going down? That's generally speaking the route to go for you and for all other founders. Yep.
Great insights. So
I have one last, what did we not ask you that you thought we were going to?
Well, it took you a little bit of time, but you got to privacy. I know. I've actually been debating whether or not to make an actual slide to address what we are doing to address that number one concern, because after all the validation that we had done, that was the number one concern, mostly brought up by women. Men, on the other hand, are much more okay with not that type of privacy stuff. But when it comes to women, guarding that and being able to address that more fully. So I've debated back and forth whether I should just put a slide in there to talk about, this is the number one concern, and these are solutions to overcome this concern right now. You did bring it up at one point, but I think that's one thing that I've been thinking about right now to incorporate.
Yeah, it's the first concern I had, just to be clear, but I didn't think it was the most important concern. So that's the reason I didn't address it first. So just so you understand how I was thinking about it, I thought about it as, why did you build it this way? And will you be able to attract users, being the two most important questions to ask about? And then it was, is privacy a concern? What would stop your progress? Some of the privacy aspects. And so I kind of thought about it as the third question in my prioritization. And that's why I asked it later rather than even though it was the first thing that came to mind. I would either recommend creating a slide or set it up knowing that that's going to be the question and put it as your first appendix slide. So you're like, that's a great question. When we talk through these things, we've got a pre-made slide ready to go. And they're like, oh, they know what they're talking about.
Okay.
So you can either address it because you know it's going to be asked, or you can wait for that question to come and ask it that way. But either route works well. I would recommend a slide for it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and I'm just to echo that. The concern I had was it kind of goes back to your customer acquisition, because if the security is a concern of people not doing it, then your adoption is going to be impacted. And that's the concern I have. And whether it's male or female, as a male investor, I'm concerned about the females being concerned, right? Yep. So I would definitely address it. Like Landon said, if you create a slide, I'd at least have it in the appendix ready to pull up in the Q&A. But maybe test it out and see if it works well in your presentation. Spend 30 seconds on it, so at least I know as an investor that it's not something you guys just kind of skipped over, but it's like, no, we're addressing it. We've got it addressed. Let's put that to rest. And if they want to ask more about it, then have a little more detail on the back end.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to our last question here, and I'll let Landon go first here. But Landon, would you, based on the presentation, the pitch deck, and what you just saw, would you take Walkbye into due diligence at this stage?
At this stage, I would say I probably would not, but that more has to do with the thesis of why they're building it the way they're building it, more so than I actually think the team is very credible. The business model is credible. Everything is there. It's just the underlying thesis of saying, I actually think the problem is people just want to connect to people close to them and they don't want to change their behavior. And so if that was the solution, I would say 100% yes. Based upon right now, I would say I think it'll be a high enough hurdle to convert users to where I would think it's too much of a change of behavior. So I wouldn't, not to do with the team, not to do with the presentation. I think the presentation and the team are at like a 7 and 8 on the structure, and more on the thesis of what are you underwriting for the risk.
Yeah, great. And like Landon said, I agree. I think the team, and that's a lot of times the biggest factor in these early stage investments. Team solid. I think you could use some diversity to address that. I think that will be a positive thing. I do think you're a little early, and you probably hear that all the time from every investor.
We need to
want to see
some concept. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see proof of concept. I want to see people actually paying for it. I didn't see that like price validation, and maybe you have some of that, but I saw that the $8.95 price point came up, but I didn't see, other than your market validation, but I didn't see a pricing validation, I guess, in there. And maybe you have it, but I'm a little nervous about how many people are going to give money over, and what kind of traction you're going to see. I'd probably wait till that. And then just the fact that I really don't know what you're asking for and what it's going to be used for exactly. If it is still product dev. So just with those missing pieces, I think I would say, yeah, not quite yet. So.
Yep. No, totally get it. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's great feedback.
I think the reality is that if you go down this route of getting a number of users you're going to get to, your product's going to shift significantly, that it doesn't really matter. So you're going to be responsive to your customers because you'll see what works. I think you get so much customer feedback, it'll be impossible kind of not to. So that's the benefit of consumers. They will give you feedback whether you want it or not.
Yep. And then it's up to you to execute on it. And that's what we want to see is, you've got a good team that's built to be able to execute and pivot if you need to, based on that consumer feedback.
Yeah. And Walkbye, actually, because that's, we're pre-rev, pre-product over this last whole year of building to where we are now. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll actually be launching. And so it's going to be an exciting time to actually, okay, we have all these theoreticals. Let's now put it to market and let's see what happens. So that's what we're definitely most excited for. Probably know that we are a bit early for most venture funds looking at this. But yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback and looking forward to putting this out there, then come back another time.
I love it. Okay. Well, thank you, Davis. I appreciate you joining us. We'll wrap things up. I'll just remind you, for those of you that are looking for help with your pitch deck, refer to Tim Cooley's book, the pitch deck book. And if you are in need of help with your financial model and building that out, feel free to reach out to Forecaster. And then, of course, thank you to Landon Ainge, who joined us from Assure. Landon is a fantastic investor, as I mentioned, but Assure does syndications, so creating SPVs for early stage founders and investors. So appreciate you joining us. And Davis, thanks again. That will wrap it up for this edition of Pitch Us.
Thank you.
So Landon, if you'll just stick around for 1 second, I'm going to stop the recording here. If I can see where to stop it. Here we go.